Even though we're nearing the end of the year, there's actually some juicy AI news happening this week. There's a major new lawsuit against Perplexity that might actually have some teeth. Amazon made a big splash with some noteworthy AI announcements at their yearly conference. And Google very quietly released a new version of Gemini 3 that's actually more powerful than the version of Gemini 3 Pro they just released like 2 weeks ago. Yet, there's just two words that people are focusing on, not those stories. It's Code Red. That is because, according to reports, OpenAI is kind of shaking in their AI generated boots as they've kind of slowly lost their stranglehold on the AI world, mainly due to Google's ca- just extremely impressive growth this year. So, we're going to be covering that and a lot more on today's edition of Everyday AI. What's going on, y'all? Welcome. My name is Jordan Molson, and this thing's for you. Everyday AI is a daily live stream podcast and free daily newsletter helping everyday business leaders like you and me not just keep up with the AI news, but how we can make sense of it, cut the BS, the marketing, and just really extract the good insights that we need to grow our companies and our careers. So if that's what you're trying to do, great. Starts here with the unedited, unscripted live stream podcast. Make sure you go check out the free newsletter, though, on youreverydayai.com. Each day, we recap that day's highlights from the podcast. So if you ever miss an episode, don't worry. And hey, just so you know, on Mondays, we go over the AI news that matters. Most Tuesdays do kind of like a hot take Tuesdays. On Wednesdays, we do AI at work on Wednesdays, more of a practical, hands-on look at AI. And usually on Thursdays and Fridays, we do some interviews. All right, so enough chit chat. Let's get into the AI news that matters for this week. All right, our first news headlines. Yeah, Google rolled out a more powerful version of Gemini 3, as if that was possible. So, Google has launched its new Deep Think mode for Gemini 3, now available to AI Ultra subscribers. So, Deep Think is Google's most advanced reasoning model designed to tackle complex math, science, and logic problems using what they call parallel reasoning to explore multiple hypotheses at once. So the feature builds on Gemini 2.5, which also had a deep think version with marked improvements in key benchmarks, including a 93.8 score on GPT-QA Diamond and a 45.1 score on Arc AGI 2 with code execution. So yeah, at least on the Arc AGI 2 quiz, I mean, blowing everyone else, including the normal version of Gemini 3 out of the water. So answers generated in deep think mode typically take a few minutes, reflecting the depth and complexity of the reasoning process. So Google delayed the rollout in November to allow extra time for safety evaluations and feedback from safety testers. So that's why we got the Gemini 3 in, I think it was November 18th. And then we got Gemini 3 Deep Think here in the first week of December. But unfortunately, it's only available to Google Ultra subscribers. So those are people like me who pay $250 a month to get just really, I won't say unlimited, but much greater limits on most of Google's AI tools. Unfortunately, at least for the first couple of days, it wasn't super usable, right? There was a lot of kind of downages or outages, whatever you want to call it. But when it does work, it is extremely impressive. The new mode is aimed at professionals and researchers needing more nuanced code, better visualizations, and improved prototyping for challenging problems. So Gemini 3 Deep Thinks performance on humanities last exam, another more popular recent benchmark, reached 41% without tool use. So, I mean, just the new Deep Think mode in Gemini 3, absolutely bonkers. Hopefully, this will roll out to all paid users. It's kind of a bummer that more people can't, use this mode because it is really good. So I'll say this: if you've ever used GPT-5 Pro or GPT-5.1 Pro, it's very similar, right? It's a slow model, right? And sometimes, unfortunately, it's going to kick out errors. But when it does work, right, and if you do have access, this is the most powerful AI large language model that there is available, bar none, right? So I said this on last week's show and the week before this, that I still thought Gemini 5, OpenAI's ChatGPT 5.1 Pro was the best model even after Gemini 3 Pro was released. But now I need a little bit more time. Uh, Google might have turned me on this one. So keep paying attention to find out. See if I jump over to that ship. All right, next piece of AI news. Perplexity in more hot water. That's because the New York Times and the Chicago Tribune have filed lawsuits against Perplexity, marking a major escalation in the battle over news content and AI. So the New York Times alleges that Perplexity used its articles without permission to train AI models and power their chatbots in a very similar lawsuit that they had with OpenAI. And Perplexity's AI products reportedly, according to the Times, reproduce Times articles verbatim and have falsely attributed fabricated information to the newspaper. The Times also says it sent several cease and desist letters to Perplexity, but the company continued using its content. The Chicago Tribune's lawsuit, kind of similar, claims that Perplexity copied millions of its stories, videos, images, and more with its generative AI tools, producing outputs identical or nearly identical to the Tribune content. So yeah, essentially both newspapers are saying Perplexity is going in past their paywalls, scraping content that they don't have licenses for and reusing it, sometimes verbatim. So these lawsuits join a growing list of legal actions by publishers against AI firms, including the marquee lawsuit that's been going on now for almost 2 years, which is the New York Times versus OpenAI and Microsoft for similar copyright concerns. And I've been saying this all along. That one is the first big domino, right? The OpenAI New York Times lawsuit, I believe it was late December in 2023 when it was first launched. So here we are almost 2 years into that lawsuit, but that is the first and the biggest domino to fall. And I've been saying this since December of 2023. I don't think that case will go to trial, but whatever does happen between the New York Times and OpenAI, I think will set the precedent for the future of AI and copyright, right? If for some reason there's a settlement and OpenAI or Microsoft has to pay, that's going to trickle down to literally every single, AI company. And conversely, if OpenAI just beats the lawsuit with no slap on the wrist, a lot of these lawsuits are going to fall. And just the kind of the whole concept of copyright, at least here in the US, is going to come into question. All right. Next piece of AI news, Amazon making headlines with the launch of 4 advanced AI models and a new service that lets companies build their own custom versions, as the company announced at their AWS reInvent conference. So AWS introduced the Nova 2 family, featuring 4 new AI models designed to handle complex tasks across text, images, video, and speech. So the Nova 2 Lite model is focused on cost-efficient reasoning for everyday tasks, while Nova 2 Pro tackles highly complex jobs like coding and advanced analytics. Then you have Nova 2 Sonic, which brings speech-to-speech conversational AI, and then Nova 2 Omni, which is their multimodal reasoning model, able to process and generate across text, images, video, and speech. So aside from the 4 new models that Amazon announced, right? Nothing new there. Everyone kind of assumed that the second version of these would come out a year later, but AWS also rolled out Nova Forge, which is essentially an AI inferencing cloud service, but it's a service that allows enterprise customers to create customized versions of Nova models called novellas for $100,000 a year. So Nova Forge gives companies access to pre-trained, mid-trained, or post-trained models, enabling them to further train these models using their own proprietary data. So interesting approach here from Amazon, almost like an in-between, not truly open source, but I haven't seen this a lot, right? Companies giving to frontier models, and we'll see where the new Nova 2 models land, if they're, really on the cutting edge or the frontier. I'd say probably not. I don't really expect them ultimately to be top 10 models, but even if they are, you don't really see that a lot. Companies having the option to use either pre-trained, mid-trained, or post-trained versions of models. So a pretty novel approach from Amazon with this to see if they can compete in the on the AI enterprise side. Because aside from the cloud, take out the cloud, right? Take out AWS. I don't personally know any company that uses the Nova models, again, unless they are really just handcuffed into AWS for any reasons, or if they have their entire company, running in Bedrock or something like that. But I don't know any company that just chooses to use Amazon's Nova models. So maybe this could change the conversation. I guess we'll see in 2026. Well, guess who's going to be using at least one model? Accenture. Thousands of them are going to be using ChatGPT. That's because consulting giant Accenture is teaming up with OpenAI to roll out ChatGPT Enterprise to tens of thousands of its consultants, marking one of the largest enterprise adoptions of Gen AI to date. So the partnership is expected to accelerate how Accenture develops consulting, operations, and tech services. And according to CEO Julie Sweet, this move will help, quote unquote, accelerate enterprise reinvention and business outcomes, end quote, for clients. So pretty big shift here, right? That Accenture is making in this official partnership, and OpenAI did put out some words on this as well, and they did confirm that Accenture will have the largest number of professionals certified in OpenAI technologies. So if you turn back the clock, right, like 2.5 years. So, we are now into year 4 of ChatGPT. ChatGPT is more than 3 years old. But if you go back 2 years, right? I said this at the time. I'm like, all these, consulting companies were writing off large language models, which I found to be funny. I'm like, there's no choice, right? I said all of these large companies that early on were writing them off. Well, we're not using them. Oh no, we're just going to use our own. I'm like, no, you're not, right? You're either going to go out of business. Eventually, you're going to get leapfrogged by smaller competitors, or you're going to end up using models from Google, Claude, or OpenAI. You don't have a choice, right? So it's foolish looking back at it now. Some of the big financial institutions, consulting firms, back in late 2022, early 2023, that said, yeah, we're not touching this ChatGPT thing. Never, never. It's like, no, yeah, you are. There's no getting around it. That's like saying you aren't going to use the internet. They've become one now. So regardless, it should be interesting to see how the consulting space is shaping up. I do think that there is, going to be a lot of things, and I talked about this on my year-end predictions last year, but I do think that you're going to see kind of hourly based consulting eventually go out the window. And we're going to look back at it and be like, I can't believe consulting companies charged hourly, right? Mainly, it's going to move to outcomes based. It has to. There's already been a couple of stories showing a pretty big percentage of consulting projects that have for decades just been billed hourly are now being billed by results, because companies are getting smart and they're like, hey, we're not going to pay Accenture or EY or KPMG or anyone else hourly anymore, because we don't necessarily know how they're using AI. So we're going to pay for the outcome, or we're going to use AI ourselves and not pay these big consulting companies for this. All right. Anthropic could be going public. Yeah. So Anthropic is reportedly making early moves toward a potential public offering that could just reshape the complete tech landscape. So, according to reports from the Financial Times and others, Anthropic is reportedly seeking a new funding round that could value the company at over $300 billion. And the company has hired a law firm this month to begin laying the legal groundwork for an IPO, a major step for any tech firm considering going public. So despite these preparations, Anthropic has still essentially said that there's no immediate plans for an IPO, but that's usually what a company that's laying the groundwork for an IPO says about their upcoming IPO. They says, hey, there's no current plans, but it's going to be rolling out, I would assume. So industry speculation suggests that Anthropic could list shares as early as the first half of 2026, potentially racing against rival OpenAI for a first spot on the public markets. So, Anthropic has reportedly held informal talks with major investment banks about a possible IPO, signaling serious interest from Wall Street. So, the company's valuation has soared from 183 billion back in September to now more than 300 billion, driven by major recent investments from Microsoft and Nvidia last month. So Anthropic's annualized revenue run rate is projected to reach $9 billion by the end of 2025, with enterprise customers making up about 80% of sales. Also, reportedly, their new Cloud Code product alone is approaching $1 billion in annualized revenue. So it is going to be interesting to see if Anthropic or OpenAI is the first to go public. It seems like it might be Anthropic. We've seen reports that said OpenAI might be late 2026, as soon as early 2027. Now we're seeing some of this code red talk from OpenAI, which we're going to talk about here in a couple of minutes. And I will say this, and I've said this before. I think OpenAI has a much higher ceiling than Anthropic. However, I would assume that Anthropic is much more profitable per user right now than OpenAI, which probably makes them a little more primed for an earlier IPO, right? Because when you look at their finances, and their CEO did say that they're on track to break even by 2028, whereas in OpenAI, a lot of the estimates have been 2029 or 2030. So it seems like OpenAI may be burning billions of dollars for more years longer than Anthropic, and Anthropic could be profitable at a much sooner rate. So that might make a little bit of a more attractive offering for going public sooner, but we'll see. All right, next piece of AI news, one I'm excited about and didn't really see this one coming. So Google has officially launched Workspace Studio, a new platform that lets employees build, manage, and share AI agents to automate routine tasks. So yeah, this is pretty cool. It's a no-code, low-code automation builder. So if you've ever used something like Zapier, like Make, or even their other product, which is kind of similar, Google Flows, this is a more robust version for Workspace customers. So the system uses Gemini 3's multimodal reasoning, allowing users with no coding experience to create custom automation and agents in minutes. So Workspace Studio integrates directly into Gmail, Drive, Chat, and other Workspace apps. And according to Google, early adopters have already used Workspace Studio agents for more than 20 million tasks in the past 30 days alone, ranging from reminders to handling legal notices and travel requests. So here's how it works. Users design automations just by describing their goals in natural language. So shifting away from more rules-based systems and lowering the barrier for non-technical employees to automate workflows. So agents can be shared across teams, supporting collaborative work and faster project cycles. Workspace also can connect to popular third-party tools such as Asana, Jira, Salesforce, MailChimp, and others, and also allows more technical users to add custom logic via apps script from Google or Vertex AI. Google does plan to roll out Workspace Studio to business customers in the coming weeks and is inviting organizations to join its Gemini Alpha program for early access. I did get access to this already. I've been playing around with it a little bit, not enough yet that I am ready to jump in and do a full episode. If I'm being honest, y'all, the last, I don't know, month or so, it's been hard. Even as someone that does this every single day, right? I still want to go use Google's Workspace flows, right? A little different than Workspace Studio. And I barely had time to do that, even though it's baked in now to the sidebar of my Gmail, right? So it's been the last like 5 or 6 weeks. It's been just so hard, even as someone that does this daily, to keep up. But this is one I'm excited for inside Workplace Studio launch. So, hey, live stream audience, let me know. Have you played with this yet? What are you looking forward to? Should we do a show on it? You let me know. I work for you. All right. Speaking of Google news, big partnership with Replit. So, Replit and Google Cloud have announced a major expansion of their strategic partnership, aiming to bring more advanced AI powered coding tools to enterprise developers. Well, in shorter words, Google and Replit shook hands on bringing vibe coding to more people. So, under this new multi year agreement, Replit will rely even more on Google Cloud's infrastructure and services, including Google Cloud Run, BigQuery, and others to support future scaling. So, Replit will integrate Google's latest AI models, including Gemini 3, Gemini 2.5 Flash, uh, Gemini 2.5 Flashlight, and Imagine 4, powering new coding and multimodal features for Replit developers. So Google 3 was recently added to Replit's design mode, offering advanced capabilities for code generation and design workflows. As part of this agreement, Google Cloud will remain Replit's primary cloud provider, and both companies will pursue joint go-to-market efforts through the Google Cloud Marketplace and co-selling programs. So yeah, another one that was kind of like, huh, didn't see this one coming. Really getting the enterprise kind of handshake on vibe coding. And if you haven't noticed, Google has gone all in and then some on vibe coding. I mean, we've seen multiple new kind of vibe coding tools from Google, including anti-gravity, Opal, Jules, Gemini CLI, right? So there's four kind of vibe coding tools that didn't exist last year. Then you have the build feature in AI Studio. And now you have this official partnership with Replit, one of the other leaders in the vibe coding era. So Google is not shying away from vibe coding, right? If you thought that this was a trend, if you thought it was going to be here today, gone tomorrow, absolutely not. It is here to stay. And again, hate to keep going back to my old, 24 predictions that I made about 2025. I said everyday people are going to be building their own software, and here you have it. And I've been seeing it, fill up my timeline on Twitter and on LinkedIn. Non-technical people literally building themselves tools that they use every day. So another nod to vibe coding with this one. All right. And our last big news story for the day. Here we go. It is Code Red time. So what the heck is going on at OpenAI? Well, according to reporting from The Verge, OpenAI is reportedly moving up the release of a new model, which could be called GPT-5.2, and it could be released as early as tomorrow. So this is in response to heightened competition from Google and their Gemini 3. So yes, according to The Verge and earlier reporting from The Information, reports said that OpenAI CEO Sam Altman declared an internal Code Red emergency after Google Gemini's 3 model outperformed OpenAI's current model on just about every single benchmarks. So the alert reportedly called for an immediate shift in priorities across OpenAI, with teams directed to focus more on improving the speed, reliability, and reasoning power of ChatGPT rather than focusing on developing new consumer features. So staff were reportedly instructed to accelerate the development and deployment of the next major model update, reportedly called GPT-5.2, with a target release date, which now could, according to The Verge, be tomorrow. So yeah, first we heard from The Information and others that it might be early January, and then it was like, oh, mid-December, late December, and nope, now it's just could be tomorrow. So the irony for those that are keeping score at home is well, the tables have been flipped, right? OpenAI here calling a code red on Google because, hey, 2 years ago, OpenAI had no real competitors. Now, Google has been running away with at least on the model side in 2025, but it was actually flipped because if you go back to December 2022, reportedly, it was Google that had its own emergency Code Red meeting in December of 2022 after OpenAI released ChatGPT. Because most people don't know this, but Google actually had AI products that they were testing in the market before ChatGPT landed. But their approach was just too conservative. And I'd say that at least in 2025, Google has been winning the model race, just on the model race, while OpenAI has been winning kind of the modes and features and growing the consumer base. But apparently, Sam Altman wants to be winning the model race and is apparently worried enough that he's calling a code red on this one. So the reports are saying that OpenAI is now going to be shifting back a little bit more of its focus toward models. What I really hope is, I hope that this doesn't mean, a lot of these other, features that were maybe more consumer based get abandoned, right? I hope not, like GPTs and projects and Atlas and agent mode and some of these fantastic, just literally like mind-bogglingly good features. I hope they don't all get kind of left out to die in lieu of newer models. We'll see what OpenAI does, but a little bit more on this GPT-5 2 update that could come as early as tomorrow is designed to close the performance gap with Gemini 3, focusing on, like I said, improvements in speed, reasoning, and reliability rather than just new features. So this was originally planned for later in December, but the launch was kind of moved up because of this pressure from Google and a little bit from Anthropic as well. Internal sources say that OpenAI's own evals show that GPT-5 could match or exceed Gemini 3's capabilities. So, regardless, it's not even shipments yet, right? So if you're wondering like what the heck is shipments, well, last year, OpenAI and Google went literally toe for toe. Right? OpenAI did more of a big announcement, some splashy marketing, right? They did this 12 days of shipments. So right before the Christmas holiday here in the US, OpenAI had 12 different releases. It was a pretty big deal and they were good, really good. Google didn't come out with any marketing, and they, in the midst of it, came out with some huge releases. And a lot of people said Google probably won last December. So a lot of people were saying like, okay, is this thing still going to happen? There was some chatter online, at least from OpenAI, that said, yeah, we're still going to be bringing a lot of new updates in December. Obviously, we got Google's maybe big updates in November. Is there going to be more? I don't know. But apparently, there may be a new OpenAI model, their best one, as soon as tomorrow. All right. I know that was a lot, but there's technically a lot more. So at the end of our AI news recaps episodes, we do a what's new and what's next. So these are some rumors, some small pieces of news, some big pieces of news that maybe just didn't make our main news stories because there was a lot happening. So here we go. Our quick list here of what's new and what's next. All right, Meta. Sorry, still overcoming a sickness here, so losing my voice. But Meta has signed licensing deals with new news publishers for Meta AI. Apple got a new AI chief after their old AI chief has retired. Anthropic acquired Bun, JavaScript runtime, marking the company's first ever major acquisition. Kling AI released their V2.6 of their video product. Pretty good, but I would say not really on VO3.1 or Sora level just yet. Speaking of Google, Google is reportedly working on a Nano Banana 2 Flash. So might be a little confusing because I think it's technically Nano Banana Pro and then Nano Banana 2 Flash. So we'll see if that's the naming that they stick with. Mistral AL released the Mistral 3 family in 10 open models. Google may be rolling out Gemini 3 to Notebook LM soon. So currently, Notebook LM runs on Gemini 2.5, so it may be getting the Gemini 3 update soon. OpenAI announced a $4.6 billion Australian AI campus. OpenAI also announced, this one I think threw a lot of people for a loop. They announced an ownership stake in Thrive Holdings, right? So OpenAI getting into the capital game. Google, according to leaks, is testing projects and scheduled actions manager. Runway announced their Gen 4.5 AI video model, and it actually topped Google's VO3.1 and OpenAI's Sora 2 on a lot of the benchmarks. However, it seems like it hasn't really rolled out yet. So they said like, hey, it's out. But most people, including myself, I've had a Runway subscription since, I don't know, it came out. I don't have access to that yet. I don't see a lot of people do. So I don't know. Maybe they had a problem. They couldn't, maybe they didn't have enough compute to roll it out. Maybe they ran into some issues after they announced it. So a pretty interesting one there from Runway. Notebook LM launched like over the weekend, I think, launched some major mobile updates, including image support. That's one that I love. I just wish you could do more than 10 images at once because I have so many screenshots on my phone, and just being able to upload them into Notebook LM as kind of just my brain to be able to do that quickly. Great. But unfortunately, only 10 at a time. Meta acquired AI wearables startup Limitless, formerly called Rewind, and apparently they just might be squashing their development and just having them work on Meta Ray-Bans. Apple Displays executive in charge of the Vision Pro joined OpenAI's hardware team. Pretty big news. We've been talking about that a lot. OpenAI making a big play on hardware, specifically poaching a lot of people from Apple. xAI's Grok 4.20 wins a real money trading league, outperforming other frontier models. OpenAI's People First AI Fund awarded $50 million to nonprofits. OpenAI tested a confessions training method so that models could self-report hallucinations and shortcuts. That was a fun one to read. Anthropic landed a $200 million Snowflake deal, integrating Claude 4.5 into enterprises. OpenAI acquired Neptune AI, boosting their internal training analytics infrastructure. And NVIDIA invested $2 billion in Synopsys for AI chip design. All right, that's it for this week, but AI doesn't sleep and we won't either. It is the end of the year, which means a lot of us are looking back on 2025, taking an inventory, seeing what worked, what didn't, and planning ahead towards 2026. That's exactly what we're going to be doing here as well over the rest of December and in January. So if you are making a concerted effort to grow with AI, to use AI more in your company, to get more of your team on board, that's exactly what we're going to be doing. Hopefully some fun announcements here in the next week or two. So make sure you stay tuned for that. So I hope this was helpful. We spent a lot of time trying to make sure you are the smartest person in AI at your company. So if this was helpful, if you're on the podcast, please make sure to like and subscribe to the show. I'd appreciate it if you could also leave a rating. It takes like 10 seconds. That'd be great. Also, if you're listening on the live stream, please take a minute to repost this. Don't be greedy. Share this free AI information with your friends, your neighbors, your babysitters, your dog walkers, your friends, neighbors, babysitters, dog walkers. Make sure they all know the realist in AI. That's what we would bring you. Thank you for tuning in. Hope to see you back tomorrow and every day for more Everyday AI. Thanks, y'all.